Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hey, gorgeous. How are you? Oh, such a beautiful day. You can probably hear the outdoors because I am on the way to pick up my daughter from daycare. And that's just the way it's done in the summertime. It's more quiet, more relaxed, calmer. I feel less rushed than on a regular day. When my kids go to school and then you have to pick them up and make dinner ready and then homework and all of that, rush that we have, and then activities. Although last year my kids weren't in any activities. Anyhow, I wanted to talk to you about a topic that, although is not 100% health related, but from my perspective and in the context of this podcast and the topic that we are talking about here, has a lot of weight and a lot of impact. And that is feeling like our kids are a huge roadblock for us and for our growth and for our just sense of moving forward with our life. And so I wanted to start by reading you a message that I received from one of the listeners, and you know who you are. And she goes like this. So she found me on Instagram, and she said she loves this podcast, and I asked her if she can tell me, if she can share about her, and if she can tell me a little bit about how she feels, because at the end of the day, it's the feeling that compels us to, to seek out help, or even look up podcasts and, open Google and find a way to help ourselves, right? So it's the feeling, it's the emotion that is under it all. It's what motivates us. And so she goes like this. So Dorit, I just don't have the energy to do anything I want to do or that I value. Everything seems like too much work. Kids are a huge roadblock to me, but I want to be with them all the time. Therefore, I can't win right now. I know it's a mental problem. I don't help myself. So, first of all, I want to say that I think me, out of anybody, out of all moms, I so relate to this. Let me share with you that I have been stuck in this mindset of kids are a huge roadblock to me. I was stuck in this mindset about 8 years. 8 years. 8 years of me having the desire to do something more, having the desire to start, to start my coaching practice, to just put myself more out there, to be more of service, to connect more. I had this desire since my first daughter was born. And then I've allowed myself, and I believed that it was because of my kids, because I have small kids, and it's just, I can't do anything. I'm stuck. That was the belief that I was subscribed to. So I totally understand it. And I guess the best way for me to explain how motherhood feels like to me, and you will probably relate to it. So I don't know if I shared this on the podcast here, is so a couple of months ago, I decided to finally invest in a bicycle. So I've had this vision that in the summertime, once it becomes warmer, we will be biking. Everybody, like all of us, will just go for long bike rides in the neighborhood. And I'm so happy that it actually is happening. Like almost every day, my husband and I, we take the kids. We have a little like carriage that attaches to my bike, and that's how we take the toddler with us, because she still doesn't ride a bike. And so that's how we go for bikes. And I think it was last week, I wanted to go on a ride with my older two girls who ride their own bikes. And I've asked my husband to detach the baby carriage from my bike. And he did it. And I said, just for once, can you detach it from my bike and attach it to yours? And he said, fine. And so here I was riding this bike without a carriage, without a baby carriage. And I just felt so free, and I felt so light, and I felt like I could ride faster. And that got me to think, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how motherhood feels like. This is how motherhood feels like. It's like all of us have this tail or this baby carriage, right? Once we have kids, and we have it all the time. It's like this tail that you can't detach it from yourself. And in the beginning, when you're just starting out the motherhood journey, it's exciting, it's new, you pour your heart and soul into it, and you like hold the baby with so much tenderness and love and compassion and patience, and it's all beautiful. And then you have another one, and then maybe you have another one, and then it becomes like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Can somebody detach this carriage off of me? I need a freaking break. So I hope this analogy speaks to you. I think it does. And so I get it. I know how it feels. I know that kids, raising young kids, let's be honest, it is a sort of a hurdle or a stopper. And especially if you are raised to believe that your job, that you do good as a woman, as a wife and a mother, only when you completely dedicate yourself to your home, right? So you take care of the household, and you quote unquote oblige and obey, become an obedient wife and do what you're supposed to do, and spend all of your time with those kids. Then it becomes really, it becomes challenging, and I've been there. Now, in terms of the truth, the truth is much simpler than you think. And when I've learned this truth, at first I was surprised, I was shocked, I was a little bit angry, frankly, because I couldn't believe that it felt like wasted. I've wasted 8 years of my life. But now I understand that, time is time, and whatever happened, happened. But I can tell you that this truth is so simple. It's not easy, but the truth is simple. And here it is. Kids are not a hurdle. They are not stoppers. They are not, although they feel like, but they are not tails. And also, Your kids don't belong to you. They come through you, but they do not belong to you. And I think what happens for us, for those, during those times when it becomes really, really challenging, and you feel like kids are a huge roadblock, right? So because of the kids, you can't pursue this career that you want. You are not applying for that job that you love. You are not going through that health program that you really, really feel like you need. You're not going on that vacation that you desire. You're not making connections with this person that you feel called to because of the kids, right? So a lot of this happens because I feel like subconsciously we are selfish, and we make this process, the process of motherhood and the journey of parenting, we make it about us. So if it's not me, then those kids, who needs them? Nobody needs them. Who can raise them? Who will care about them more than me? There is some truth to it. I'm not going to deny it. There is some truth to it. And so, but the truth is that your kids will do much better emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and even physically if they are raised by different people. But of course, by people who love them and appreciate them and teach them and nurture them and help them to become who they're meant to be. But if we are taking the entire responsibility of raising those kids, of raising those little humans all on our own, then we are first and foremost harming ourselves as moms. We are depriving ourselves of time, of solitude, of because mentally it's so hard. And I remember the times when I stayed home with my kids, and I was so convinced that I must stay home with each one of my child for 12 months. And I did. So like I said, this truth came to me after I was done with having kids. And there is a reason for that. But I've learned through working with coaches and mentors and constantly allowing myself to just be coachable and learn from other people who I admired, and I wanted to be like them. And that's the truth that they've shared with me. They've shared with me that your kids do not belong to you. And so your job is, and by the way, this was a repeating topic at Dr. Shefali's event that I attended last year, Evolve, in LA. And she just repeatedly said, your kids do not belong to you. They come through you. It is your job to guide them, but it's not your job to do everything for them and to take their entire the responsibility of raising them solely on yourself. That is selfish. And what my coach shared with me, and that is true with regards to anything, not just raising kids, but she said, whenever you feel like you must be right about something, like so right that it's like you're just convinced, you're like being idealistic and just so self-righteous, that is a sign, right? And you need quite a bit of consciousness to admit this, and also self-honesty, to admit that this comes from a place of ego, not necessarily the truth. And so there was a lot of shock for me when I first learned about this. There was a lot of guilt and shame, and also, like I said, that feeling of, oh my God, all this time that I was subscribed to this idea, to this notion, to this belief. It was just a waste of my energy. It was a waste of my time. It was a waste of my human potential, because imagine what I could have done in 8 years. Imagine, like, I could have had my practice probably doubled in revenue, or even tripled, if I wasn't so rigid about believing this idea. And so that is the truth, my love. I know it feels like you constantly have a tail, and like you are constantly it's just so hard. It's hard to trust your kids with other caregivers. It's hard to ask for help. And the truth is that it's hard to ask for help. Again, it comes from a place of selfishness. If you really, really dig into it, it comes from the ego. Okay, I'm gonna move away from the road. It comes from the ego, and it comes from a place of fear, a fear of asking for help, a fear of saying, I need help, will you help me? A fear of putting yourself out there, a fear of showing up as the more evolved and matured version of you. And if you don't do that, you will keep feeling torn, and you will keep feeling like you are miserable and suffering and struggling to raise your kids. Now, this is one thing. Now, let's think about it from the perspective of your kids. What are we teaching our children when our entire experience of raising them is sour? Or even if you got into the habit of like pretending to be really, really put together in front of them, but when you're on your own, you cry to your pillow, you cry at night, you cry yourself to sleep. If you think that they don't feel that, maybe they don't know it, maybe they don't have the language to say it or ask you, but they feel it. This is energy, and energy is something that it's there. It's there, even if you don't see it. Let me give you an example of how energy works. In the context of this podcast, right? So health, nutrition. I have worked with many, many moms who were very strict at home with regards to food. So they have never allowed their kids to eat like junk food or any of the snacky stuff. And yet in the evening, at night, when those kids went to bed, that's when those moms, obviously because they've been starving themselves during the day, not keeping their blood sugar balanced, that's when they would open those cupboards with the cookies, with the cakes, with the pastry, and that's when they would binge. And so those moms were always surprised. How is it that my kids are so obsessed about cakes and cookies and candy? I just don't get it. I don't allow this stuff. They don't even have that. I have this stash, but yet when they go to their friends, it's like they lose control. And this is an example of how this works energetically. It's because they know that you do so. Because when you behave out of integrity, this is sensed. It is very much sensed around you. So your partner will feel it, your kids would feel it, and you would feel it too. And the way it will be manifested is through just discomfort, like a heaviness in the chest, feeling like you are out of control, out of alignment, and just not good. Not good. Whenever that feeling sets in, it's because emotionally, spiritually, you are out of alignment. You are not aligned. So that is an example. And so where was I going with this? Yes. Energetically, make sure that you emanate the truth, right? If you feel like your kids are a roadblock, or they are holding you back from, like this mama said, from doing what she wants or from doing things that she values, sit with that. Ask yourself, get into your journal and ask yourself, is this the truth? Is it true? Is it true that my kids are holding me back? Or do I use my kids as an excuse, as a socially acceptable excuse to prevent myself from going further, from growth, right? I remember I've done this exercise myself too. In my case, one of the biggest fears that I've had was that if I pursue something more in terms of career and, personal growth, that jeopardizes, it takes away my time from my family, and it puts my parenting and my marriage at risk. And for me, how should I explain it? I value the family unit so much. Like, to me, this is sacred. To me, the work that I do, that me and you do at home, it's sacred. Like, there's nothing above it. And so I was so afraid that if I give myself the permission to pursue something more that will potentially take away from from whatever I'm creating at home, it will jeopardize that. And so subconsciously I self-sabotaged any attempt to grow or take risks or take out of my comfort zone. And so that's what I challenge you to do as well. Sit with it and ask yourself, is this the truth? And then look outside of yourself and look for examples of women who have the things that you want, along with the family and the marriage and the home life and all of those things. So I can give you an example of women that I look up to, who really inspired me to be truthful to myself and to actually be courageous and keep pursuing the things that I want. And I remember that journal entry so badly. I remember even going on Google and looking up it was so funny. I looked up married women who successful business owners who are married, who are moms and are happily married. and Google gave me thousands of results, which was a confirmation and a proof to me that I was BSing myself for years. So, women like Rachel Hollis and two of my coaches, so Heather Chauvin and Sarah Walton, even Beyonce. I love Celine Dion. Her husband just recently passed away, but she is a great example to me of like strength and fierceness and feminine power. Michelle Obama. Who else can I think of? Really, there are thousands, millions of examples out there of women who have done great things in the world and who are doing great things in the world, but they're still married, happily married, and raising amazing kids. So I want you, I guess, from this podcast. Oh, and the other thing is also, if you feel out of alignment in this topic, If you feel like your kids are a roadblock, this could also be a physical thing, like a real physical issue, right? So I always start with emotional and mental, and asking yourself. So this is something that I do in my practice. It's called soul coaching, which is really going deep with yourself, doing this inner work, giving yourself permission to be really honest with yourself. So I always begin there. And then there is a point where it just, like, things don't change, they don't shift, and the tools that I have, they just don't work. And that is an indication that this could be a physical problem. So physically, biologically, something is off. Also nutritionally, right? Because if you think about it, when you have kids, your body, like, you've just made a person. Your body just created a person. So a lot of the nutrients that you had were used by the baby, right? And so it's not to say that they took anything from you. In reality, it's unfortunate, but the truth is that we just are not taught, we're not educated to nourish ourselves for pregnancy, so that both us and baby thrives. And also post-pregnancy, we are not taught how to replenish those lost nutrients. And so that could be another reason. If this is something that you feel is happening, please reach out to me. I don't want you to keep suffering and struggling and keep, like, playing this loop in your head over and over again. This is a complete waste of your human potential, and also your kids. Because remember, you are modeling for them, and they're looking at you, they're watching you. And it is one of my missions, in doing this kind of work, that we stop giving birth to children who are programmed for suffering and are programmed for living like half people, half humans, or half women, right? I see it over and over again in my practice. Women live maybe at 30% capacity. 30%, energetically speaking, in terms of their weight, in terms of their stamina and libido. Oh my gosh, it's the biggest topic that I have in my practice. Right? We just are accustomed to living like this, and it's not that that's how it's supposed to be. It's just that we get used to it, right? So you get used to it, maybe. Right? So if you feel like this is something that is holding you back, reach out to me. Please find me over at Instagram. Find me over on Instagram. So my handle is @HealthBeginsWithMom. You can also find me on Facebook. So my name is Dorit Palvanov. My last name is spelled as Palvanov. You're very welcome to join my Facebook group. It's called Busy Moms Get Healthy. Keep listening to this podcast. Reach out to me. Let's connect. I'm happy to jump on a quick discovery call with you. It is non-obligatory. You don't have to commit to working with me, but just to get into the habit of sharing and the things that bother you, and living in alignment with what's truthful to you, right? As opposed to just lying to yourself over and over again, and being, remember this rigidness that I was talking about, believing that you are right and you are right no matter what. That is, like I said, this comes from the ego. And what's beautiful about motherhood, it's if you really do it right, if you really surrender to it and you allow it to help you to grow. So one of my coaches used to say that parenting, it's like personal growth on steroids. It happens really fast, right? And motherhood and parenting puts a sense of urgency to everything you do, because time flies, and it's like, you don't have time to waste, right? You can't play small anymore. And so motherhood is humbling. It's humbling. It's so raw and vulnerable, and it will crack you open. It definitely cracked me open. It still does. And so anytime you find yourself being right, just know that it comes from the ego. It is not true. And let it go. Let it go. And then if you feel like it's a physical issue that, that has been coming back for you again and again and again, please reach out to me. I've worked with dozens of women who've had this problem, and through incorporating the feminine current into their life and eating in alignment with their cycles and learning how to balance their blood sugar and learning how to cycle sync and how to eat, exercise, socialize, and just to do life cyclically, it changes lives. It gives women the framework from which they can finally thrive and not just survive. And as women, as wives, and as mothers, we deserve to thrive. This is our birthright. I want it for me, and I want it for you. So I hope this has been helpful. Like I said, please find me over on Instagram at Health Begins with Mom. DM me, send me, see if you can snap a picture of this podcast, of you listening to it, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Share it with at least one mama who needs to hear this message. Because remember this, yes, maybe, motherhood, yes, it does. It's true. It feels like we perpetually will have these tales and the baby carriage that I shared. It's just, that's the way it is. That's how we are designed, right? And I remember myself also feeling really jealous of my husband, that he will never have it, that he will never have that level of responsibility. He can just get up and leave, right? But I won't. And so, yeah, that's why I said that it is a very humbling journey. And it's humbling in a sense that you are learning how to mediate the ego and step into what I call your divine feminine. You're learning how to surrender, how to be quiet, how to slow down, and how to master your emotions, right? Emotional mastery, it's one of the things that I talk about again and again with women in my practice, because it's so important. Learning to understand your emotions and also how to work with them and how to communicate how you feel and what you need. It's super important, especially for us as mothers, as as the people who are raising the next generation, is super important, right? And I believe that our children are born to us, and your kids and my kids, they have chosen us. My kids have chosen me, and your kids have chosen you. And so if you do have God or higher power or any whatever it is that you believe in, if you allow this to be a part of your life, then you need to remember that you would never be confronted with a challenge that you don't have the power to conquer. Right? Just remember that. And that's it. I am already here on the bench under my daughter's daycare. I'm going to pick her up. I'm going to give her a huge squeeze and a kiss. But still remember that she's not mine. She doesn't belong to me. It is my job to give her the best that I can, but it's also my job to lovingly, kindly, respectfully let her go when it's time. All right, I hope this has been helpful to you. Reach out to me, let's connect, and I am sending you off with so much love and many, many blessings, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at Dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love this show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.